For more than 3 decades, King Charles quietly constructed an entire framework around Queen Camilla, piece by piece, like a long-term project that only fully reveals itself when you step back and see the scale of it. Nothing about it happened overnight. It was built through years of decisions, careful positioning, and gradual acceptance inside the institution. Titles, residences, patronages, visibility, and legitimacy all came together under Charles's authority, forming a structure that placed Camilla firmly inside the modern monarchy. But every structure inside the royal system has one unavoidable truth attached to it. It only lasts as long as the monarch who created it. And that is where the entire dynamic begins to shift. Because when Charles is no longer on the throne, everything he built does not automatically remain in place. It passes into the hands of a new king, and that new king is William. And William is not approaching this like a man making emotional decisions. According to royal watchers and insiders familiar with his working style, he never has. He operates quietly, deliberately, and with a focus on long-term institutional structure rather than personal sentiment. There will be no dramatic announcements or public confrontations. No speeches designed for headlines. Instead, what comes next is expected to be gradual, precise, and fully procedural. The world Charles created for Camilla is not something William will openly attack. It will simply be restructured until it no longer exists in its current form. To understand how significant that is, you first have to understand what exactly Charles built. The most visible element is the title itself, Queen Camilla. It represents her full integration into the monarchy at the highest level, a decision that formally places her at the center of royal identity. When Charles became king, that title was confirmed, solidifying her position as the consort and ensuring she stood beside him as queen during his reign. But royal titles are not permanent possessions. They're tied directly to the reign of the monarch. And when that reign ends, so does the structure that supports them. When William ascends, the title of Queen Consort shifts immediately to Catherine as the wife of the new king. That is the constitutional reality of a monarchy. Only one queen exists at any given time in that role. There is no overlap, no shared position, and no continuation of status. What remains for Camilla after that is not automatically defined. It becomes one of the earliest symbolic decisions of William's reign. And according to those familiar with royal planning discussions, it is not expected to mirror the elevated status she currently holds. The idea of her being styled as Queen Mother is reportedly off the table. That title carries historical weight connected to the mother of a reigning monarch, something that does not align with Camilla's position within the royal lineage. Because of that, alternative arrangements would have to be created, likely resulting in a reduced or redefined royal identity that acknowledges her connection to Charles, but does not position her as a continuing central figure in the monarchy. And that is only the beginning, because beyond titles lies something even more practical: the physical structure of royal life. Residences like Clarence House are not just symbolic addresses. They are operational hubs tied to the identity and function of senior royals. Under Charles, Camilla's position gave her full access to these spaces, along with all the support systems attached to them. Staff, security, transport, administrative networks, and institutional resources all operate as part of the royal machine. But those systems are not personal property. They are allocated based on role, relevance, and function within the monarchy. As William's reign begins to take shape, those allocations are expected to be reassessed. Clarence House, in particular, is already widely understood to be part of the future framework for William and Catherine's royal presence. That alone signals a major shift in Camilla's physical and operational base. What follows would not be abrupt, but it would be inevitable. A transition period would be managed with care and respect, as is customary in royal changes, but the outcome would be clear. Camilla would no longer be positioned within the central royal residences in the same capacity she currently enjoys. Instead, her life would shift toward a more private arrangement, likely supported at a level consistent with a former senior royal, but no longer embedded within the core working structure of the monarchy. Even more significant than residences is the network of patronages. Over the years, Camilla has accumulated a portfolio of charitable organizations, literary initiatives, cultural institutions, and social causes. These roles are not just ceremonial. They are deeply connected to the royal brand and the visibility of the monarchy in public life. More than 30 organizations currently operate under her patronage or association. But patronages are not fixed assets. They are assigned, reassigned, and reshaped according to the priorities of the reigning monarch. And William is expected to take a far more centralized approach to how these relationships are structured. That means transitions would not happen overnight. These organizations would not be abruptly cut off or left unsupported. Instead, a gradual reallocation would take place. Discussions would be held, futures would be reassessed, and over time, many of these roles would likely shift toward Catherine or other members of the working royal family who align with the future direction of the monarchy. In that process, Camilla's public-facing role would slowly diminish, not through confrontation, but through institutional redistribution. What remains after titles and patronages is something far less visible, but far more powerful: influence. This is the layer of royal life that never appears on official documents. It exists in conversations behind closed doors, in informal exchanges between senior figures, and in the subtle shaping of decisions that define how the monarchy operates day to day. During Charles's reign, Camilla's proximity to the king gave her access to that space, not through authority, but through presence. Being the spouse of the monarch naturally places someone close to the center of decision-making, even without formal power. But that kind of influence is entirely dependent on one thing: the person who holds the crown. When Charles is no longer king, that channel of influence does not transfer. It disappears with him, because William does not inherit that relationship dynamic. His interactions are shaped by a different history, a different understanding, and a different set of boundaries. And according to those familiar with how William operates, that boundary is already clear. Without access to that informal layer of decision-making, everything else becomes purely symbolic. Titles remain on paper, residences become logistical arrangements, patronages become ceremonial assignments, but the ability to shape outcomes from within the institution fades. And that is the most significant shift of all, because in the monarchy, formal power is only one part of the equation. Informal access is often what defines real influence. Once that is gone, what remains is structure without leverage. Observers describe what William is preparing not as an act of personal retaliation, but as institutional correction, a recalibration of roles based on his interpretation of what the monarchy should look like moving forward. In that framework, legacy plays a central role. The monarchy under Charles was shaped by years of gradual accommodation, balancing public perception with personal relationships and long-standing commitments. But William's approach, as it has been observed over time, is more focused on clarity, structure, and defined boundaries. That difference in approach is where the shift becomes most visible, because what Charles built was based on continuity and consolidation. What William is expected to build is based on simplification and restructuring. And in that transition, Camilla's position becomes one of the most sensitive adjustments the institution will face. It is not about erasing history. It is about redefining roles in a system that must evolve with each reign. Every monarch leaves behind a version of the institution that reflects their priorities, and every successor reshapes it in turn. What makes this particular transition so closely watched is not just the individuals involved, but the scale of what is being recalibrated. Titles, residences, patronages, influence, and legacy are all interconnected. Changing one inevitably affects the others, and William, by all accounts, understands that better than anyone. So, as the monarchy moves closer to its next chapter, what remains uncertain is not whether change will happen, but how complete it will be. Because when a new king steps forward, he does not just inherit a crown. He inherits everything that was built around it. And sometimes that means quietly taking it apart and rebuilding it in a way that reflects a different future entirely. And that is exactly what makes this moment so closely watched.